Hello, dear aspirants. Welcome to Epitome IAS. So, we have recently started this new initiative of PYQ analysis of UPSC prelims. So, we have already covered two topics from this series. So, the third topic would be the Constitution of India from the Indian polity. So, basically, we are going to solve the questions which have directly been asked from the Constitution of India, the schedules, the preamble, and etc. So let us start with the class. So the first question would be, consider the following statements in respect of the Constitution Day. This question was asked in 2023. They have given two statements here. The statement number 1, the Constitution Day is celebrated on 26th November every year to promote constitutional values among citizens. They have given the second statement, that is, on 26 November 1949, the Constituent Assembly of India set up a drafting committee under the chairmanship of B.R. Ambedkar to prepare a draft constitution of India. So they have given the options. Option A, both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct, and statement 2 is correct explanation for statement 1. Option B, both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct, and statement 2 is not the correct explanation for statement 1. Option C, the statement 1 is correct but statement 2 is incorrect. Option D, statement 1 is incorrect but statement 2 is correct. So if we see this first statement, they have given that the Constitution Day is celebrated on 26th November every year to promote constitutional values among the citizen. Yes, this statement is correct because we celebrate 26th November as the Constitution Day. We can also call this Constitution Day as Samvidhan Divas in Hindi. So, this first statement is correct. If we see the second statement, on 26th November 1949, the Constituent Assembly set up a drafting committee. Is this correct? No, this is not correct. You should be remembering this date, 26th November 1949. This is a very important day in the history of India. This date, what was happened in this date? We actually adopted the Constitution of India. The Constitution of India was adopted by the Constituent Assembly on 26th November 1949. We can also say we have enacted the Constitution of India by the Constituent Assembly. So this particular statement, statement number 2, is actually a wrong statement. So which will be the correct option? Statement 1 is correct but statement 2 is incorrect. So the correct answer would be option C. So now let us go to the next question. Okay, these are some of the other important dates which are related to the Constitution. So shall we recall what are these dates? So the 9th December of 1946. What is this date? This date is nothing but the first meeting of Indian Constituent Assembly has held. First meeting of the Constituent Assembly. It was held on 9th December 1946. And what are the important facts which we have to remember? The first meeting was boycotted by the Muslim League. Who was the first president of the Constituent Assembly? Dr. Sachidananda Sinha. So Dr. Sachidananda Sinha was elected, not elected, he was appointed as the first president because he was the oldest member of that particular assembly. And later Rajendra Prasad, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, he was elected as the first president of the Constituent Assembly. Now you comment me, who are the vice presidents of the Constituent Assembly? So next if we see here, 13th December of 1946. This date is also important because on this date, Jawaharlal Nehru, he moved objective resolution in the Constituent Assembly. Then the next important day is 26th November 1949, and we already saw we enacted or we adopted the Constitution of India in this particular date. If we see here, the next date is 26th January 1950. What happened on this date? The Constitution actually came into effect on this date, and that's why we are commemorating this particular date and we calling it as the Republic Day. Okay, so let us go to the next question. The second question is, consider the following statements. This question was asked in 2022. The first statement is, a bill amending the Constitution requires prior recommendation of the President of India. Statement 2. When a Constitution Amendment Bill is presented to the President of India, it is obligatory for the President of India to give his assent. Statement number 3. A Constitution Amendment Bill must be passed by both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha by the special majority, and there is no provision for joint sitting. So before answering this question, let us recall what is the procedure we have for the Constitution Amendment. So if we see here, the procedure for the constitutional amendment is mentioned in the Article 368 of the Indian Constitution, which is part of Part 20. So the first point is, the bill should only be initiated in the Parliament. It can either be initiated in the Lok Sabha or it can either be initiated in the Rajya Sabha, but a constitutional amendment bill cannot be initiated in any state legislature. It can only be initiated in the Parliament. It can be either House, either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, no issues. So the second point, the Constitution Amendment Bill should either be presented by the minister or the private member. There is no particular provision that only the minister should introduce. Any private member can also introduce the particular bill, Constitutional Amendment Bill. Who is a private member? The ministers, the Council of Ministers are there in the Parliament. Apart from the ministers, the other members of Parliament are called as the private member of the Parliament. So this particular any particular amendment bill can either be initiated or introduced by the minister or by any private member, no issues. Then third point, no prior permission of the President is needed. Before introducing the constitutional amendment bill, there is no need to get the permission of the President. You have to remember this. This is very important point. Then the fourth point is, it must be passed in each house, both the houses, both in Lok Sabha and in Rajya Sabha, with special majority for amendment of the constitution. Then the fifth point is, in case of disagreement, there is no provision for joint sitting. If you see, in case of an ordinary bill, if there is a disagreement between the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha, there is a provision called joint sitting where both the houses come and try to remove that disagreement. Okay, but there is no provision for joint sitting in case of the constitutional amendment bill. If there is a disagreement, there is no provision for joint sitting. This is also very important. Then if you see the sixth point, amending federal features, special majority is needed from the Parliament and simple majority is needed from half of the state legislature. So there are certain provisions of the constitution which are federal in character. So these provisions, to amend these provisions, the Parliament, it cannot pass this amendment bill. To pass this amendment bill, it needs support of at least half of the state legislature. But in the case of state legislature, only simple majority is enough. But at least they should be giving the support from half of the states. Then seventh point, that is the president must give his assent. This is the most important point. Once the constitution amendment bill has been passed from both the houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, the president must give his assent. He cannot send it for reconsideration, or he cannot withhold that particular bill. He must give the assent. So now let us go back to this question. So if we see here in the first statement, they have given that a bill amending the constitution requires prior recommendation of the President of India. Just now we saw that there is no need for prior recommendation. So this statement would be wrong. In second statement, they have given that when a constitution amendment bill is presented to the President of India, it is obligatory for the President of India to give his assent. Yes, it is obligatory. He must give his assent. He cannot withhold, or he cannot send it for reconsideration. So this particular statement is correct. Then if we see the third statement, a constitution amendment bill must be passed by both the houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, by special majority. Just now we saw this provision, and there is no provision for joint sitting. Yes, this is true. So the correct answer is 2 and 3. That is option B. That is the right answer. So now let us go to the next question. So if you see here, the third question is, if a particular area is brought under the 5th schedule of the Constitution of India, which one of the following statements best reflects the consequences of it? This particular question was asked in 2022. So the statement given here are option A, this would prevent the transfer of land from tribal people to non-tribal people. Option B, this would create a local self-governing body in that area. Option C, this would convert that area into a union territory. Option D, the state having such areas would be declared as a special category state. So if you have read something about the 5th schedule, you would have been able to understand that this provision is given by the constitution for the protection of the less developed areas. Let's say the tribal people, the tribal areas, they are not well developed. They have that social and economic backwardness in that particular area. To prevent this, to prevent the misuse of those people, that's why this provision has been there in the constitution. So this option, this would prevent the transfer of lands from the tribal people to the non-tribal people. Yes, this is correct, because this is one of the consequence if a particular area comes under the 5th schedule of the constitution. And if you see the option B, it would create a local self-governing body. There is no provision for local self-governing body in the 5th schedule. If they have mentioned about the 6th schedule, yes, there is some provision for a autonomous tribal council, but there is no such provision for other 5th schedule areas. So this statement is wrong. If you see option C, this would convert that area into a union territory. No, this doesn't make any sense. So this statement is also wrong. The state having such areas would be declared as special category state. No, this is different. These areas which are mentioned in the 5th schedule are different from the special category states. So this option is also wrong. The correct answer is option A. So if you see here in Article 224 of Indian Constitution, which is in the part 10, the special administration of socially and economically backward areas, that is the scheduled areas and tribal areas, these are mentioned in the 5th schedule and the 6th schedule. If you remember, in 6th schedule we have given that special protection for the areas from the 4 different states. What are they? Assam, Tripura, Mizoram and Manipur. In the 5th schedule, we have given the special protection for 10 different states other than these 4 states. So now let us go to the next question. What was the exact constitutional status of India on 26th January 1950? This question was asked in 2021. So if you see This question they are asking about the constitutional status, not today, not the present, but they are asking the constitutional status of India on 26th January 1950. So you have to see what was the constitutional status during that period. If you remember, to check the constitutional status, we can see the preamble. So the preamble of the constitution, it shows the nature of the constitution. So if you see here, they have given four options: a democratic republic, a sovereign democratic republic, a sovereign secular democratic republic, a sovereign secular socialist democratic republic. So if you see, the preamble has been amended only one time. Everyone knows this, by the 42nd Constitution Amendment Act of 1746. Sorry, 1976. By this constitutional amendment, the preamble has been amended only one time and they have added three words in it. What are these three words? Socialist, secular, and integrity. So these three words has been added in 1976. What they are asking, the constitutional status of India in 1950. So these three words should not be there in the option. Simple. So this option D we can eliminate. Again we have here this secular word. We can eliminate this option as well. So if you see here, option B, sovereign, yes, there is sovereign. This word is mentioned in preamble. Democratic and republic. Yes, these three words are mentioned in the preamble. It was mentioned in the original preamble. So this is the right answer. Option B is the right answer. So the next question. Consider the following statements. This question was asked in 2020. Statement number 1. The Constitution of India defines its basic structure in terms of federalism, secularism, fundamental rights and democracy. Statement 2. The Constitution of India provides for the judicial review to safeguard the citizens' liberty and to preserve the ideals on which the Constitution is based. So if you see here, the Constitution of India defines, they have given defines. Whenever this word defines or mentioned in the Constitution comes, you have to make sure, you have to double check whether the statement is correct or not. So the Constitution does not define the basic structure of the Constitution. In fact, there is no word such as basic structure in the Constitution. Then this basic structure, where did it come from? This basic structure come from the Supreme Court's interpretation on the Constitution. So when there was a question whether Parliament can amend the Constitution, the Supreme Court in Keshwananda Bharati case, it clearly said, yes, the Parliament has power to amend the Constitution, but it cannot change the basic structure of the Constitution. If the Parliament completely changes the basic, completely changes the Constitution, it will rewrite a new Constitution, right? So without impacting the basic structure, without changing the basic structure, the Parliament has right to amend the Constitution. So that's what the Supreme Court said in the Keshwananda Bharati case, and it came up with this basic structure doctrine. So this particular statement is wrong because Constitution does not define the basic structure. Second statement, the Constitution of India provides for judicial review to safeguard the citizens' liberty and to preserve ideals of the Constitution. They have not mentioned defines, or they have not mentioned, it is mentioned, this term. Yeah, even though the word judicial review, the term judicial review is not mentioned in the Constitution, but they have not asked whether this term is mentioned in the Constitution. What they are asking? They are asking whether the particular term, this has been provided by the Constitution. Yes, the judicial review provision has been provided by the Constitution in Article 13. What does the Constitution say in the Article 13 of the Constitution? Article 13 clearly says that if any law which is not inconsistent with the fundamental right, which is against any fundamental right, then the Supreme Court can declare that particular law null and void. It can remove that particular law. This provision is there in Article 13 of the Constitution. So this is nothing but the judicial review. So the Constitution of India actually provides for the judicial review for both the Supreme Court and the High Court. Both the Supreme Court and the High Court can review any law, both by the Parliament and by the state legislatures, and check whether if they are inconsistent with the fundamental rights. If they are against the fundamental rights, then these particular laws can be cancelled, can be removed by the Supreme Court. So this particular statement is correct. So the correct answer would be option B, only 2. So the next question, the preamble of the Constitution of India is option A, a part of the Constitution but has no legal right, no legal effect. Option B, not a part of Constitution and has no legal effect. Option C, a part of Constitution and has same legal effect as any other part. Option D, a part of Constitution but has no legal effect independently. This is the keyword which you have to see here, observe here. So the preamble of the Constitution, what it says, if we see option A, so originally what happened is this kind of confusion it was there, whether preamble is part of the Constitution or it is not part of the Constitution, whether preamble is enforceable by law or it is not enforceable by law. So what happened was, in Berubari case of 1950, this question came up whether preamble is part of Constitution or not. The Supreme Court has given its judgment that no, preamble is not the part of the Constitution and it has no legal effect. This particular statement, option B, this was the judgment given by the Supreme Court in the Berubari case in 1950. Then what happened? Then time passes by. Then in the next case, that is the Keshwananda Bharati case, the preamble, the Supreme Court said that no, preamble is part of the Constitution, but it cannot or it has no legal effect independently. What it means? Yes, preamble is part of the Constitution, no doubt about it. You can't say preamble is not the part of Constitution, but separately, preamble is not enforceable. That is, it has no legal effect independently. So what it means? Let's say while interpreting the Constitution, when the Supreme Court or the High Court, they have any doubt, they want to know the minds of the makers of the Constitution, then they can see the preamble, the values mentioned in the preamble, and then they can interpret the Constitution in correct manner. So preamble independently, it is not enforceable. That's what is given in the fourth statement. So the fourth statement, a part of Constitution but has no legal effect independently. This is the right answer. And if you see here, yes, in the Berubari case of 1960, sorry, I have mentioned 1950 later, it was 1960. So the preamble is not the part of Constitution. This judgment was given by the Supreme Court and it has no legal effect. But in Keshwananda Bharati case of 1973, the Supreme Court reversed its own judgment and it said that preamble is part of the Constitution, but it is not enforceable. And it clearly mentioned that independently it is not enforceable. Okay. Then in LIC case of India, 1995, then again the Supreme Court upheld the same thing which was said in the Keshwananda Bharati case. So now let us go to the next question. Question number 7. In India, separation of judiciary from the executive is enjoyed by. This question was asked in 2020. Option A, the preamble of the Constitution. Option B, the directive principles of state policy. Option C, the 7th schedule. Option D, the conventional practice. So if you see the separation of judiciary from the executive. If you see, during the British rule, what happened is these collectors or the district magistrates, they had both the power of revenue collecting and they had also the judicial powers. Even in some criminal cases, legal cases, they had this judicial power along with the revenue collecting power. So then what happened? We are talking about the separation of judiciary from the executive. These collectors are nothing but the part of executive. So the judicial powers which are actually related to the legal side are actually given to the judiciary instead of giving it to the executive. So this question is talking about this particular provision. So where do we see this separation of judiciary from the executive? Article 50. Article 50 of the Indian Constitution talks about the separation of judiciary from the executive. And where is Article 50? It is part of the directive principles of state policy. So the correct answer is option B. So the next question, the ninth schedule was introduced in the Constitution of India during the Prime Ministership of. So they are asking that the ninth schedule, it was introduced in the Constitution during which Prime Minister's time period. So the option given are option A, Jawaharlal Nehru, option B, Lal Bahadur Shastri, option C, Indira Gandhi, option D, Morarji Desai. So now, if you see the ninth schedule, it has been added by the first Constitutional Amendment Act. You know this? By the first Constitutional Amendment Act of 1951. So who was the Prime Minister during the first Constitutional Amendment Act during 1951? It is Jawaharlal Nehru. So the answer is option A. So if you see here, the ninth schedule, it was originally added in the Constitution to protect certain acts and regulations of the state legislature which are dealing with land reforms and the abolition of zamindari system. Why? Because these particular acts or regulation, they are against the fundamental rights. So if they are against the fundamental rights, then Supreme Court can actually declare them null and void. So to protect these laws from the scrutiny of the judiciary, what they did was they put these particular acts and regulation in the ninth schedule. Then what happened is, till this time, yes, there was no judicial review for any law or any regulation which was included in ninth schedule. But in 2007, the Supreme Court said, no, that can't happen. Any law which is included in the ninth schedule, at least after this date, 24th April 1973, they are open to judicial review. Why is this particular date important? This is the judgment date of the Keshwananda Bharati case. So after this case only, we have come up with this basic structure doctrine of the Constitution. That's why this particular date has been chosen, and the Supreme Court clearly said, after this date, if any law or any regulation is added in the ninth schedule, then the Supreme Court has the power to do the judicial review. Okay, so now let us go to the next question. Under which schedule of the Constitution of India can the transfer of tribal land to the private parties for mining be declared null and void? We already saw one of the previous question which was talking about the transfer of tribal land to the non-tribal people. Where we studied this? We studied this in the fifth schedule of the Constitution. So in the fifth schedule of the Constitution, to protect these tribal areas, this provision was there. So again, the question was indirectly asked. So the correct answer would be option B, fifth schedule. Next question, consider the following statements. Statement number 1, the Parliament of India can place a particular law in ninth schedule of Constitution of India. Statement 2, the validity of law placed in ninth schedule cannot be examined by any court and no judgment can be made on it. So if you see here, we already talked about the ninth schedule of the Indian Constitution. Yes, to include any particular law or any particular regulation, the Parliament can include that particular law in the Constitution. This statement is correct. If you see the second statement, the validity of the law placed in the ninth schedule cannot be examined by any court and no judgment can be made out of it. Just now we saw in 2007, the Supreme Court said that no, that's not happening. We are doing the judicial review. At least from this particular date, whichever law or whichever rules or regulations are added to the ninth schedule of the Constitution, we are going to do the judicial review. This is what Supreme Court has said in the 2007 judgment. So this particular statement is wrong. So what is the correct answer? The answer is A, only one. So the next question, which one of the following objectives is not embodied in the preamble of the Constitution? They're asking which of this particular provision is not embodied in the preamble of the Constitution. This question was asked in 2017. Option A, liberty of thought. Option B, economic liberty. Option C, liberty of expression. Option D, liberty of belief. So they are actually talking about the liberty here. So if you remember the objective of liberty in the preamble, what they have mentioned, let us have a look at the preamble so that you will understand clearly. So this is the objective of liberty here, and what they have given, the liberty of thought, the liberty of expression, liberty of belief, liberty of faith, and liberty of worship. So now let us go back to this question. So they have given liberty of thought, liberty of expression, and liberty of belief. There is no mention of economic liberty. So this particular statement is wrong. So what they are asking, which is not mentioned in the preamble. So the option B is the correct answer. So once let us have a look at the preamble. If you see here in the preamble, they have actually given these words: sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, and republic. This is the nature of our state. And they have also given some objectives of our constitution, that is justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. You should also remember these terms. And if you see here in the last line, they have given that in our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, 26th November 1949, this day has been mentioned in the preamble where they have enacted the Constitution of India. So now let us go to the next question. The mind of the makers of the Constitution of India is reflected in which of the following? This question was asked in 2017. So if you see the mind of the makers of the Constitution, obviously this has been mentioned in the preamble. If you see N.A. Palkiwala, he said that preamble is the identity card of the Constitution. So the preamble shows the principles which we are having in the Constitution. The preamble is like a, what do you say? It is like a mind. It shows the minds of the makers of the Constitution. So the next question. So in India, the judicial review implies. This question was also asked in 2017. Option A, the power of judiciary to pronounce upon the constitutionality of laws and executive orders. Option B, the power of judiciary to question the wisdom of the laws enacted by the legislature. Option C, the power of judiciary to review all the legislative enactments before they are assented by the president. Option D, the power of the judiciary to review its own judgment given earlier in similar or different cases. So if you see here, judicial review, we already talked about it in one of the previous question. This is not judicial review. The option D, see here, the power of judiciary to review its own judgment. This is not judicial review. We can eliminate this option. And if you see option C, the power of judiciary to review all the legislative enactment before the assent of the president. When the president gives the assent, then only it will become an act, right? So this particular statement is also wrong. And there is competition between A and B. So if we see B, the power of judiciary to question the wisdom of laws enacted by the legislature. So whichever laws which are enacted by the legislature, yes, this is judicial review. And in option A, what they have given, the power of judiciary to pronounce the constitutionality of the laws in the executive orders. If you see in Article 13, they have clearly mentioned that any law which is going against the fundamental rights, the Supreme Court has the power to declare it null and void. And they have also mentioned that the term law does not only mean the laws which are passed by the legislatures. It also belongs the ordinances. It also includes the delegated legislation. It also includes the rules and regulations. In a way, we can say that it also includes the executive orders along with the laws. So this option A, is more appropriate, and this is the right answer, option A. So that's it, students. So we have done this particular topic, the Constitution of India. So let us see in the next topic. Thank you.